I woke up that morning with a feeling of excitement. I had been accepted into the university of my dreams and was eager to start my new life in the city. My parents had booked me an Uber ride to take me to my new dorm, and I was looking forward to a peaceful journey. I entered the car and was greeted by a friendly driver named Michael, who looked to be in his mid-40s. As we started our journey, I noticed a woman glaring at me from across the street. She was in her late 30s, blonde, and had a haircut that screamed, "I want to speak to the manager." I shrugged it off and continued chatting with Michael. As we approached a busy intersection, the woman suddenly ran towards the car and slammed her hand on the hood. Michael slammed the brakes, and I was thrown forward. The woman stormed toward my window and started banging on it. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could tell from her body language that she was furious. Michael rolled down my window, and the woman started screaming at me. "You took my Uber, you entitled brat," she yelled. "I've been waiting here for ages, and you just waltz in and steal it." I was taken aback by her sudden outburst. "I'm sorry, what?" I asked, genuinely confused. "You heard me, you little snot," she screamed. "Get out of my ride." Michael tried to defuse the situation. "Ma'am, this is my car, and I have been assigned to take this young lady to her destination. You will have to find another ride." The woman's face turned red with anger. "I demand that you kick her out of the car right now," she shouted. I decided to speak. I took a deep breath and tried to reason with the woman. "I'm sorry, but I didn't take your Uber. My parents booked this ride for me, and Michael here is my driver. Maybe there's been a mistake." The woman rolled her eyes and scoffed. "Oh, please. Like, I'm supposed to believe that. You kids these days are all the same, entitled and selfish." I couldn't help but roll my eyes back at her. "Yes, because clearly I had a master plan to steal your Uber by randomly jumping in a car and hoping it was the right one," I said sarcastically. Michael chimed in again. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step away from the car. You're causing a disturbance, and I need to ensure the safety of my passenger." Karen didn't take kindly to Michael's request. Instead of moving away, she stood in front of the car and refused to budge. "I'm not going anywhere until you kick this entitled brat out of my ride," she yelled, pointing a finger at me. I was getting increasingly anxious, wondering how long this would go on. Just then, Karen pulled out her phone and started dialing a number. "I'm calling Uber customer service right now, and I'll make sure they know about this incident," she said smugly. Michael looked at me apologetically. "I'm sorry about this. I'll try to resolve the situation as quickly as possible." As Karen ranted on the phone, I tried to stay calm and collected. I knew that there was no point in arguing with her, and I had to trust that Michael would handle the situation. A few minutes later, a police car pulled up to the scene. Karen's behavior had caused a disturbance, and someone had reported it to the authorities. The officers approached us and asked what was going on. Karen immediately started yelling at the officers, telling them that I had stolen her Uber ride. Michael tried to explain the situation, but Karen kept interrupting him and insisting that she was in the right. Finally, one of the officers asked for our IDs and checked the Uber app on his phone. He confirmed that I was the correct passenger and that Karen had not been assigned this ride. Karen was not pleased with this outcome. "This is ridiculous," she shouted. "I demand that you arrest this entitled brat and her driver for stealing my ride." The officers were not amused by Karen's behavior. "Ma'am, you need to calm down and stop causing a disturbance," one of them said sternly. "This is not how we resolve conflicts." Karen huffed and crossed her arms, muttering under her breath. As the officers talked with Michael and me, Karen threw inappropriate comments about the narrator, driver, and Uber company, revealing her entitled and narrow-minded attitude. Eventually, the officers instructed Karen to leave the scene and warned her that she could face charges if she continued to cause trouble. Karen stormed off, still grumbling about how unfair the situation was. I let out a sigh of relief as the police car drove away. Michael turned to me and apologized again for the incident. "I'm sorry you had to go through that. Some people just can't handle not getting their way." I nodded and smiled, grateful for Michael's kindness and understanding. "It's okay. I'm just glad it's over now." As we continued our journey, I couldn't help but think about how one person's entitlement and anger could cause so much trouble, but I also felt a sense of gratitude for the people like Michael and the police officers who were willing to stand up for what was right and ensure my safety. I was out running my usual route when I saw a woman who appeared to be in her early 40s yelling at a group of teenagers in the park. She was wearing designer sunglasses and a matching tracksuit, looking like she was ready for a workout at a high-end gym. As I approached, I noticed that the teenagers were just minding their own business, enjoying their day in the sun. The woman, however, was in a fit of rage, demanding that they move from the spot they were occupying. "What's the problem here?" I asked, hoping to defuse the situation. "These kids are sitting on my spot," she snapped. "They need to move." I could tell right away that this woman was one of those entitled types who believed the world revolved around her. "Actually, this is a public park," I pointed out, "so they can sit wherever they want." The woman glared at me, clearly not used to being challenged. "And who are you?" she demanded. "I'm just someone who doesn't like to see kids being bullied," I replied, feeling a little bit of satisfaction from my sarcastic comment. She scoffed. "I'm not bullying them, I just want them to move." "Ma'am, why don't you find another spot to occupy?" I suggested, hoping she would see the error in her ways. But instead, she turned on me. "Excuse me, I pay taxes for this park. I have every right to be here and sit where I want." I rolled my eyes. "Well, so do they, and it's not like they're harming anyone." The woman huffed and crossed her arms, clearly not happy with my suggestion. "Fine, but I expect you to make sure they don't disturb me." I nodded and walked away, feeling satisfied that I had stood up for the teenagers. As I continued my run, I couldn't help but think about why this woman was so entitled. Maybe she had been born with a silver spoon in her mouth, or maybe she had worked her way up to the top through sheer determination. Either way, it didn't excuse her behavior. I had my own experiences with entitled people. Growing up, my parents were always working hard to provide for our family. We didn't have much, but we were happy. I learned the value of hard work and the importance of treating others with respect. It was a lesson that had served me well in my adult life. I was now a successful business owner, but I never forgot where I came from. I treated my employees with kindness and respect, knowing that they were the backbone of my company. As I finished my run and headed back to my car, I saw the entitled woman once again. This time, she was blocking the entrance to the parking lot with her car, honking her horn and yelling at the poor attendant who was just doing his job. I walked over, hoping to once again defuse the situation. "Is there a problem here?" I asked, trying to sound calm and collected. "This idiot won't let me in," she screeched, pointing to the attendant. "I have somewhere important to be." "Ma'am, you're blocking the entrance," I pointed out. "If you move your car, then you'll be able to get in." The woman glared at me. "Who do you think you are? You can't tell me what to do." At that moment, I saw her lose her temper. She charged at me, attempting to physically attack me, but I was quick, dodging her poorly aimed punch. She stumbled and fell to the ground, her designer sunglasses flying off her face. I couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of her lying there, her entitlement and anger getting the best of her. "You should really learn to control your temper," I said with a smirk. "It's not becoming of someone your age." The woman got up, still fuming with anger, but didn't try to attack me again. She grabbed her sunglasses and stormed off to her car, muttering under her breath. The attendant and I exchanged a look, both of us relieved that the situation was over. As I got into my own car, I couldn't help but reflect on the encounter. It was a reminder that entitlement and anger can lead to irrational behavior and that it's important to stand up for what's right, even if it means standing up to someone who thinks they're above the rule. But most of all, it reminded me of the importance of treating others with respect, no matter their age, gender, or social status. It's a lesson I learned early on in life and one that I strive to live by every day. And as for the entitled woman, well, I'm sure she'll continue to behave in the same entitled way, but at least she learned that her actions have consequences. And for that, I'm sure the teenagers in the park and the attendant at the parking lot are grateful. I frantically looked around, trying to locate my Uber driver in the sea of cars parked outside the mall. As I checked my phone to see if I missed his call, I heard a loud screeching sound. I turned around to see a woman, probably in her late 30s, rolling down the window of a black sedan parked beside me. "Hey, you!" she shouted. "Do you know how to order an Uber? My phone's dead, and I need to get to the airport ASAP." I blinked in surprise, unsure of how to respond. Yeah, you just download the app and... I know how to order an Uber. I'm asking you to order one for me, now. I hesitated, feeling the anger radiating off the woman like a heat wave. But I didn't want to be rude, so I pulled out my phone and ordered her an Uber, hoping she'd calm down once the ride arrived. As we waited, I introduced myself, hoping to make small talk and lighten the mood. "Hi, I'm Emily," I said, smiling. "Are you heading out of town?" The woman scowled. "I don't have to tell you anything. Just mind your own business and let me deal with this." I bit my lip, feeling foolish for even trying. But before I could apologize, a silver Toyota pulled up and the driver leaned out the window. "Hi there," he said cheerfully. "Are you my passengers?" The woman nodded, climbing into the back seat without so much as a thank you. I followed suit, feeling uneasy as we drove off. As the ride progressed, the woman, whose name I learned was Karen, fake name obviously, became increasingly irritable. She kept demanding the driver go faster, despite the heavy traffic on the highway, and complained about everything from the music on the radio to the temperature inside the car. "Are we there yet?" she whined, tapping her foot impatiently. "This is taking forever." I rolled my eyes, wishing I could escape from this entitled nightmare of a passenger. But I was too polite to say anything, so I just sat there, stewing in my own frustration. As the ride continued, Karen's complaints grew louder and more frequent. She complained about the traffic, the weather, and the driver's choice of route. She even criticized his driving, yelling at him to speed up and weave through traffic. "Hey, slow down!" she barked as the driver navigated a sharp turn. "You're going to get us killed!" The driver, who had remained polite and professional throughout the ride, finally had enough. "Ma'am, I'm driving as safely and quickly as I can," he said firmly. "If you continue to threaten and berate me, I'll have to end this ride." Karen glared at him, her face turning red with anger. "You can't do that," she spat. "I paid for this ride, and I demand to be taken to my destination." The driver shook his head. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I can't continue with this ride if you're going to threaten me and put my safety at risk." Karen's face twisted with fury. "You can't do this to me," she screamed. "I'll sue you! I'll get you fired!" But the driver was unmoved. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said calmly, "but I can't continue this ride. I'm pulling over, and you'll have to find another way to get to the airport." With that, he pulled the car over to the side of the road and opened the back door. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said one last time before Karen stormed out of the car, cursing and screaming. I watched in amazement as the driver calmly closed the door and drove off, leaving Karen stranded on the side of the road. I couldn't help but feel relieved that I no longer had to be in the same car as her.